Surin Klusowski entered this world in the village of Nagorna, now part of Kolo, in the Warsaw Governorate of Congress, Poland, born to Antoni and Emilia Klusowski. His father, a skilled carpenter, provided the foundation for his early years. At the tender age of 14, young Surin embarked on an apprenticeship journey under the guidance of a senior surgeon named Moszko Rapoport in Zwolen. During this apprenticeship, he assisted in various medical procedures, including the application of leeches for bloodletting, a practice of the time. His thirst for knowledge led him to enroll in a brief course in practical surgery at the Warsaw Praga Hospital, spanning from October 1885 to January 1886, as verified by a certificate in his possession. Klusowski continued his medical pursuits, serving as a nurse and doctor's assistant in Warsaw until December 1886. Following this chapter in Poland, Klusowski embarked on a journey that led him to the United Kingdom, specifically settling in London. The exact timing of his arrival remains shrouded in uncertainty, but a receipt for hospital fees dated February 1887 marks the last known record of his presence in Poland. His early life documentation abruptly concludes around that time, suggesting his potential departure for the UK in or around 1887. Witness testimonies from his trial suggest an immigration year of 1888. Upon his arrival in London, Klusowski secured employment as a hairdresser's assistant, commencing his work in late 1887 or early 1888. His initial employer was Abraham Radin of 70 West India Dock Road, where he worked for 5 months before branching out. He opened his own barber shop at 126 Cable Street, St. George in the East, a location that may have been significant during the autumn of 1888, coinciding with the infamous Jack the Ripper murders. In 1889, Klusowski married a young Polish woman named Lucy Baduski, despite already having a wife in Poland. This union led to a confrontation with his first wife, who, after a brief return to Poland, eventually departed from their lives. The couple had 2 children and lived in various residences across London before immigrating to the United States in 1891, as indicated by the last available census record from April that year. They settled in Jersey City, New Jersey, where Klusowski found work in a barber shop. However, their marriage was marred by intense conflicts, reaching a breaking point in February 1892 when Klusowski physically assaulted Lucy, who was pregnant at the time, and made death threats. Lucy returned to London, sought refuge with her sister, and gave birth to a daughter. Klusowski eventually returned to London, leading to a short-lived reunion before their relationship dissolved for good. In 1893, while working as an assistant at Haddon's hairdresser shop, Klusowski crossed paths with a woman named Annie Chapman, no known relation to the Ripper victim of the same name. Their relationship blossomed, and they moved in together. In a significant turn of events, he adopted Annie's surname, becoming known as George Chapman. In 1894, after almost a year of cohabitation, Chapman introduced another woman into their shared household. Consequently, a pregnant Annie left him a few weeks later. Early in 1895, Annie informed Chapman of their impending child, but he offered no support. That same year, he began working as an assistant at William Wenzel's barber shop located at 7 Church Lane, Leytonstone, while lodging at John Ward's residence on Forest Road. Chapman maintained relationships with at least 4 women who posed as his wives, but his sinister actions ultimately led to the death of 3 of them through poison. These unfortunate women were Mary Isabella Spink, Bessie Taylor, and Maud Marsh. Chapman used a toxic substance known as tartar emetic, which he had procured from a chemist in Hastings, Sussex. This compound, rich in antimony, could inflict a painful and deadly outcome when misused, mirroring symptoms akin to arsenic poisoning. Chapman's connection with Mary Isabella Spink began while he worked at Wenzel's barber shop. Spink, grappling with alcoholism and abandoned by her husband and son, engaged in a sham marriage with Chapman. She left him an inheritance of £500, equivalent to £60,000 in 2021, and started cohabiting with him. Together, they leased a barber shop in a destitute part of Hastings. Their initial business venture floundered, prompting a relocation to a more prosperous locale where they introduced the novelty of musical shaves. Spink played the piano while Chapman attended to the customers, attracting a sizable clientele and a substantial income. Chapman even acquired a sailing boat named Mosquito. However, their relationship was marred by Spink's enduring abuse, characterized by brutal beatings. A neighbor in their building attested to hearing Spink's cries in the night and observing injuries on her face, as well as marks on her throat. On April 3, 1897, Chapman obtained a 1-ounce dose of tartar emetic from William Davidson, a chemist on High Street. Their barbershop venture eventually collapsed, forcing Chapman into the management of a pub in Bartholomew Square. It was there that he poisoned Spink fatally. Subsequently, he became involved with Bessie Taylor, formerly a restaurant manager. However, his abusive tendencies resurfaced, marked by verbal tirades and even a menacing display of a revolver. As Taylor began displaying the same ominous symptoms as Spink, Chapman fled London with her to avoid any potential scandal, relocating to Bishop's Stortford, Hertfordshire, where he ran the Grapes pub. Eventually, they returned to London, and he secured a lease for the Monument Tavern. Despite medical intervention, Taylor's health deteriorated progressively, culminating in her death in 1901. Chapman also attempted to set fire to the Monument Tavern, which was swiftly losing its lease. In August 1901, he hired Maud Marsh as a barmaid for the Monument Tavern. Chapman once again entered into a fictitious marriage with her and subjected her to physical abuse. Tragically, she too succumbed to poisoning. Suspicions surrounding Marsh's demise prompted a police inquiry, which, upon exhumation, revealed that Marsh and the other 2 women had indeed died from poisoning. Chapman faced a murder charge for Marsh, as an indictment allowed only 1 count. He was tried and convicted on March 19, 1903, receiving a death sentence from Mr. Justice Grantham and subsequently hanged at Wandsworth Prison on April 7, 1903. Chapman's motives for these heinous acts remain enigmatic, possibly rooted in purely psychological factors. While he had gained a substantial inheritance from Spink, he had no financial gain from the other 2 victims.